Welcome, everybody. Thanks to our listeners. Today, we're going to answer a question. I was just at an ACF meeting a few days ago, and there's one thing which comes up all the time. Let's have a conversation about it. Hello, Christian here. I'm the host of the Disruptive Chef Entrepreneur Show. Welcome to our live episode today. And today I wanted to have a conversation around education in our industry. And there's those two camps. People feel like, you know what, it's much better to have some experience where you actually spend some time in the kitchen before you go to culinary school. There's this other group which feels do the culinary school first and then get out in the field and learn as much as you can. I think there's a few key points. It doesn't matter if you kind of do the school on your own or if you choose to go to a culinary school. So for me, as an example, I did a 6-year apprenticeship, and through our apprenticeship, because I have a master's in hotel and restaurant management, so our stuff is different. We learned from front of the house to back of the house to how to check people in and all the good stuff. But what I have learned over the last few years, there's a few criteria which sets the winners apart. And for me, number one is really simple. In order to succeed in this industry or in any industry for this matters, you need to have a continuous learner's mindset. And that's really important, especially around the culinary world, because food is everywhere and food is so vast. And for me, over the last 30 plus years, I feel like I learn something all the time. I was just out of town a few days ago, and it's amazing on if you walk around open to continuous learning, that food is everywhere. Food is everywhere, and it's so unique to the area where you spend time with, and it also is very unique to the people preparing it. And for me, food is one of those mediums. There's nothing like that, and food is that great equalizer, because when we come to the table and we break bread, we all equal. And for me, that's just amazing thing around food. And then also having that continuous learning mindset, it it is super important for you to stay constantly evolving and staying ahead in these crucial days where just so much information coming at you. And I was taught by one of my mentors a very long time ago, who said, read in the culinary industry for 1 hour a day for 5 years and you will be a subject matter expert. And for me, when I boil it all down, it comes to the continuous the learner's mindset. So it's really important for you to do that. And it could be via a mentor, it could be a part of a mastermind group, or it could be as simple as going to a culinary school. So best way to educate yourself in the industry is really, it starts with that learner's mindset. The second one, we talked a little bit about it, is that formal culinary education where you go to a culinary school. It could be a local school, or it could be one of the really good ones like the Culinary Institute of America or Johnson Wells. And there's some other really great, amazing schools out there. So a formal education, for me, hiring 1,000 plus people in my career, a formal education gives you a really good baseline on understanding the global landscape of food. I also found people which go to certain schools which are much better hands-on, and they don't really have that vast understanding of international cuisine, but they're really good in putting a great meal together, and they're really good in working within a team. The great thing about that formal education is that you have the opportunity to go through a structured curriculum and then have some hands-on experience. So again, if you have the opportunity to do a formal training, please do a formal training. There's also what I did is that apprenticeship or the mentorship. And because that really highlights the learning through apprenticeship or mentorship programs under one really amazing experienced chef. I was really lucky in my apprenticeship. I had one of the very few European master chefs I've worked with. He was very tough on me, but he was also one of those guys when he taught you, there was always a reason for why he did things. And he was just a really good guy to be around. For the first few years, I was super scared of him because he was also the meanest guy I know. But he was really good in just breaking things down and make it relatable. And that's really important. So if you choose to do an apprenticeship or work with a mentorship program, it's really, really beneficial that you know that that person has done what you want to do. Also, it helps because they had those learnings. They had to overcome something. So it helps you kind of shorten that learning curve, which is a really great way to learn a lot of information really, really quick. So for me, I chose to do a 6 year apprenticeship. And through our program, it allowed you to do it. Then, graduate with multiple degrees. In Europe, you need to have a degree in order to serve food. So I was a server. I was a cook. I graduated a cook. I graduated as a baker and a butcher. So that was for me. That's why I chose to do an apprenticeship program, and I absolutely love that. So, formal education number one. Second one is that you have an opportunity around apprenticeship and or a mentorship program. Then number three is what we talked about earlier: is having that hands-on work experience. You could go to a local restaurant and spend some time with the chef and say, "Hey, I want to learn what you do." He will probably have you start in the beginning. For me, my very first few months, my chef at the time said, "Hey, you need to wash the dishes." So when I call for a certain pot for a certain size, you know exactly what this looks like and where it's at. And then from there, I graduated into the cold station. And at the cold station, I went to the warm station. And at the warm station, I went to the saute station and to the grill and had to able to work all of these stations. So doing a on the job training really is really beneficial. I hired a lot of chefs. They never had a formal training, but they had some really good guy which taught them on the job. And there's nothing wrong with doing that route versus a formal education or an apprenticeship. It really comes down to the person. And as we started this conversation, it's all around continuous learning and having that learner's mindset. Without that, it doesn't really matter how good the training is. I also wanted to talk a little bit how you could stay educated in today's culinary industry is in industry events or networking. I can't stress the importance enough of how important networking is in our industry. It's a very small industry, and making a lot of friends and making a lot of connections in the industry is really beneficial because if you ever need something and um, that there's this person you met and they're really good at this, you can call them and say, "Hey, I need some help. I need some advice," and they're willing to support you. I also encourage you to go and participate in industry events, workshop, culinary conferences. Expose yourself to as many new things as you can to learn trends, learn new techniques. It's amazing what chefs do out there in the industry. And if you just work and don't go to industry events, you will miss out because there's some really, really amazing stuff out there. Next point for you to learn a little bit more in our industry is around old fashioned stuff: books, cookbooks, culinary publications. There's a lot of amazing books out there. And for me, as I started out, I loved having books, and I think I have a few thousand books at this point. But for me, owning a book allowed me to learn about the chef whose recipes I'm cooking. And the book was really important. I read the foreword and how their experience was. And I wanted to see how they wrote the recipes because it made me understand who they were and what was their point of view and how did they approach that dish. And for me, that was really, really important. And I know today books and culinary publications are really not that popular anymore. But doing it, it helps you to evaluate resources for self education. Again, there's nothing wrong with that. Also, You need to understand the role of literature in providing a deep understanding and knowledge on culinary techniques, cuisines, and culinary history. For me, it was always very important when I made a dish that I understood what is that dish all about? What is the heritage background? Why did they do certain things? What was the impact in the community? What was the impact of the people which grew the ingredients for that? And understanding that culinary history, I believe it just gives you an edge over what's really important and why certain dishes were made a certain way. And it's really important for you to do that. And for me, I still do today. For me, I have digital publications. I have, printed ones. And in my file cabinet, I have a file when I see something really cool, I rip it out and then I file it. Appetizers, entrees, dessert, techniques, new styles, new way of presenting food. And if I need an inspiration, I look through that, and it kind of helps you just stay current. Also, it's really important to um, that you experiment. And as chefs, I think for us, we love to experiment. We love to try new things, but do it in a structural, not just structural, in an intentional way to, you know, experiment and be creative. Some of the greatest dishes were a mistake. They were not supposed to be what it is. And having fun and experimenting and playing with food is just amazing because you have that opportunity to learn those essential components of culinary education. And for me, doing experimentation and having that opportunity to be creative is a must. And I encourage all the chefs, and if you listen to this and you haven't done it in a while, just take an ingredient and spend a day around the ingredient with your background, with your history, and make it a phenomenal dish. And have that simple ingredient become the star of the dish. And sometimes it's easy to go out there and cook a filet mignon. It's easy to cook shrimp. But how great would it be if you could take something simple as corn and make a really delicate, exquisite appetizer out of it? Which has a lot of craftsmanship because it's not about the final dish. For me, I always look at any dish. How did the chef go about doing it? And for me, craftsmanship is really, really important. So I encourage you to experiment and be creative. And if you have the opportunity, like I did, I gotten three, four of my chef friends together, and we all created six desserts out of two ingredients. And then we kind of spoke about, hey, why did you do this? I really love that. I will take that idea and do it in my restaurant. I hope you don't mind. And it just helps you to stay inspired, and it just helps you to stay on trend. Because if you work in your kitchen every day and you don't do that experimenting, if you don't go to industry events, you kind of get stagnant and you need that inspiration. So I encourage you to read the books, go out to industry events, join a mastermind group, join a local networking group. For me, I belong to the Ami Diaspora Society, belong to the Gordon Talk group. I belong to the American Culinary Federation. I'm part of the Society of Fellows of the CIA. So that's just a really great way to stay engaged. Next one is I want to talk a little bit more about culinary communities and forum. So for me, every chef needs to join a culinary community. If it's an ACF organization, if it's an online discussion group, if it's a group of like-minded individuals who share knowledge, I call it a mastermind, which allows you to learn some new stuff, and also which allows you to get some feedback on people which come there just to make you better. And we hosting a mastermind. If you're interested in joining a mastermind, let us know below in the notes, or just reach out to us in our private community, which is the Disruptive Chef Club. If you haven't done so, please join it and ask us to become part of the mastermind group. And you can join our group at 100% for free. And being part of a mastermind group was that big needle mover for me. It was that needle mover for me because it allowed me to share my experience and give feedback. It also allowed me to learn from other people's mistakes and feedback. And it also allowed me to put out some new ideas and ask for feedback and know that it came back unbiased. I knew that it came back because they wanted me to succeed. And being part of a mastermind group, there's nothing better than that because you know you have that group of 8 or 10, whatever the size of that group is. They are all invested in your success. And there's nothing like it. If you haven't done so, you need to be part of a mastermind. But belonging to a culinary community or a culinary forum, you also need to be aware that you will get out of that group what you put in. What do I mean by that? If I show up, like, haphazard way, or if I show up maybe once every 3 months, you will get nothing out of it. If you show up consistently, being there, playful out, provide feedback to others and get feedback back, you will get a ton of value out of it. For me, being part of any of those culinary communities and forums, the key of success is you need to participate. You need to be intentional when you show up to the meetings. You need to be intentional how you communicate. You need to be intentional how you contribute. You need to be intentional how you receive information from the group. Absolutely, absolutely amazing way to just elevate your skills, elevate your business, and elevate your knowledge around food. And before we get to number 10, if you haven't done so, please join our private community, which is the Disruptive Chef the Club. What we do there is we meet and have conversations like that. It allows you to become part of our mastermind group. It allows you to become part of our book writing course. We host book writing courses where we teach chefs how to write a book in 8 weeks or less. I wrote 34, and if I can do it, so can you. And we have a step by step program which helps you to get a book on the shelf. So if you haven't done so, please go to the Disruptive Chef Club and get yourself that unfair advantage from the chefs across the street. And my final point on how to educate yourself on the culinary industry to get to the highest level of your career or to the highest level of our industry is personal development and a growth plan. I can't emphasize enough that the best way to educate yourself in the culinary world is through a combination of some formal training, hands-on experience, continuous learning, and a passion for culinary excellence. I wrote a book. It's a short book, like 26 pages, and it's not really a book. It's a report more. It's about what it takes to be and work in that realm of culinary excellence. Culinary excellence is simple. It starts that you really understand what this industry is all about, that you really clear of where you want to go in your industry or in your career, that you really clear is how do you look at education, get really clear how you talk to yourself, because we really hard on ourselves. We think hard on ourselves than anybody else. And I encourage you to do that, because being a listener and embrace lifelong journey of self-growth, it just there's nothing better than that. And understanding the power of culinary excellence. And culinary excellence is not just a final product, it's the way I show up for myself every day. Not just the way I show up, how I produce with my team, how I support them, and how I support the communities I work in. Culinary excellence is also about the impact I make, the legacy I leave, how I support not just my employees and my communities, but the industry. And it's really, really important to do that. I know we had a lot of things we talked about how to get or stay educated in the industry. Remember, it starts with that learner's mindset. The second one is look at a formal education if you want to come into the industry. And if you are in the industry and you had that formal training, I encourage you to become part of a community like a mastermind. Then we talked about what is the apprenticeship and how you can have a mentorship to help you excel in the industry, and then how you can take that hands-on learning, on the job learning, and become an icon, a leader and somebody people look up to in our industry. And then also the power of networking and industry events. I make a conscious effort, and I have done for the last 20 years, to go to 2 to 3 industry events a year. And I'm committed to make or participate in 10 networking events. There's nothing more powerful than having a strong network. We talked about online resources and courses. It's an amazing way to get out tutorials, webinars, or virtual classes, or being part of that mastermind we spoke to. You can join a master class and learn something really amazing about an amazing cuisine you never thought of. And then you can leverage books and culinary publications to educate yourself and can have that continuous learning within your career. Don't forget to experiment, because when you experiment and be creative, it makes it fun. And for me, why do it if we don't have fun? And then we talked a little bit about the culinary communities and forums. I encourage you to join a mastermind today. It's the single biggest impact in my career. It was my single biggest needle mover in my industry, in my career. I enjoy you. I encourage you to do that. And then don't forget about the personal development. Have a plan on where you want to go. Have a plan of the outcome you want to have, the impact you want to make, the legacy you want to leave, and how you can support the community like no one else. So I know this was a short one today, but I wanted to talk about there's so many amazing ways on how to get and stay educated in the industry. I hope there's one which sparked your interest, and I hope there's one you want to experiment and go after to have your best year yet. So with that, I want to say thanks for giving me your time this morning. If you're in a car or whatever you do, I hope you have a safe trip wherever you want to go. I also appreciate you guys listening. If you like this episode, share it with a friend, bookmark it, and maybe you need to listen to it again. Because remember, not taking action on when you learn something new which inspires you is not growth. It's not knowing about it. Knowing is doing. Knowing is having that impact I know you can have in this industry. With that, I want to say thank you for listening in. Until next time, remember to disrupt your kitchen, fire up your career, stay hungry for change. I'm Christian, the entrepreneur host, and I hope you are the change. You hope you are the challenge, and I hope you are the chef who sets the world on fire. With that, I want to say thanks for being here today. Thanks for listening in. Thanks for giving us the gift of your time. I really appreciate you being here. With that, go out there and stay disruptive. Thanks, everybody. We see you at the next live meeting.